I don't even know how many videos I've made on this channel talking about Paddy Pimblett and where his career should go next. If you remember, about 1 year ago, I made a video essentially saying like how to save Paddy Pimblett's career, and the next matchup I gave for him was in fact like Tony Ferguson, and that was the matchup I suggested next. And 1 year later, it's happening, and then when the fight was actually announced, I made a completely separate video saying this is the perfect matchup, regardless of people saying they hate it, da, 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 da. And obviously Paddy Pimblett himself is saying it's a lose-lose, which I do agree with. It is kind of a lose-lose. You know, if he beats Tony Ferguson, it's like, okay, you've beaten Tony Ferguson that's on a 6-fight losing streak, it's not a big deal. And if you lose to Tony Ferguson, oh, you've lost to the washed up Tony Ferguson that no one cares about. So it is a lose-lose, right? Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. However, if you go out there and dramatically finish Tony Ferguson in the first round, that is incredible. Regardless of how old Ferguson is, regardless of 6-fight losing streak, that is a massive achievement. That's something that you can take to your grave. Yeah, I finished Tony Ferguson in 3 minutes. You know what I mean? And I'm here to say who I think is going to win. My original prediction was Paddy Pimblett by split decision, but now I'm going to go Paddy Pimblett by finish. And I think it's going to be a KO. I think Paddy Pimblett KOs him. I don't think Paddy Pimblett is going to try and submit Tony Ferguson. Paddy Pimblett came out in one of his vlogs doing jiu-jitsu, and he said there's no point in him trying to submit Tony Ferguson because the guy doesn't tap. You know, if it's going to be any submission, it's going to be a choke where Tony Ferguson will go out cold. However, I think Paddy Pimblett knocks him out. I think Paddy's got power in his hand. He's a really big lightweight. No one gives him enough credit for how big of a stature he is. He's quite thick. But also fast, explosive, and he's durable, as we've seen. You know, people like myself did not give him enough credit for fighting 3 rounds with Jared Gordon with 3 parts of his foot broken. That's completely like crazy. He had 3 separate surgeries on 3 separate parts of his foot to reconstruct. He had ligament reconstruction, 3 different parts of his foot. And I just want to say this, I love Tony Ferguson so much. Like, I love Tony Ferguson, and when this fight was announced, I was so gutted because I want to see Ferguson win. And 100%, if Ferguson goes out there and loses to Paddy Pimblett, a 7-fight losing streak in the UFC, you're not sticking around, mate. You're not sticking around. It would be, I think, what was BJ Penn, 7 or 8 or something like that? Then they just said no. There was a few fighters that got to that type of number, and how can you go from 12-fight win streak to a 7-fight losing streak if he loses this weekend? That's just absolutely crazy to me, and it's heartbreaking because Tony Ferguson was literally like one of my favourite fighters to watch, and I think it was the same with everybody else. But let me explain to you why I think Pimblett's going to beat him. I just think Ferguson at the moment, he doesn't have any strength. The speed, I think, will kind of be back for this fight. You know, he has said about speed, but I just think this fight, he's going to have no power, no explosivity. I mean, the work with David Goggins, regardless of what MMA fans might think, we have no idea how that's going to affect him. That could have been the best thing he's ever done for his career. He just feels invigorated, he feels strong, he mentally feels like he could take over the world. But realistically, doing 1,000 lunges or 2 miles worth of lunges is going to completely zap your legs and going to take a week to recover. You know what I mean? Like, that's not scientific, it's not smart. That's not necessarily something you need to do for an MMA fight. I mean, building your legs is really important for MMA, for that explosivity and that power. But you want to do that more with like things like jumping squats and stuff like this, and burpees and kicks and, you know, 50 squats rather than 2 miles worth of lunges. That doesn't really make much sense to me, to be perfectly honest. However, I'm not here to judge Tony Ferguson whatsoever. I'm here to just say, Tony, if you go out here and win, I'll be very, very happy. But the point of this video, as MMA fans, we should all want Pimblett to win. We should all want Paddy Pimblett to go out there and destroy him. We as MMA fans should want Paddy Pimblett to go out there and knock him out in 10 seconds for the sport. He's a big name. It would be so fun seeing him chat shit to different lightweights. And if Ferguson wins, okay, great, Ferguson got a win. He's then going to fight again and most likely lose. That's the thing. This is a good fight for Ferguson because obviously Paddy's chin's held up, but I feel like we're going to see a good version of Paddy here, like a patient version that's going to just play to his strengths. If Ferguson beats him, it's pointless. I mean, yeah, it's great for us fans because yes, Ferguson gets a win. We all love Ferguson. But realistically, if Ferguson goes out there and wins, he's going to go and lose again if he goes up the ranks, or he's going to fight someone like Bobby Green caliber or Jared Gordon caliber next and potentially lose. However, Ferguson versus Jared Gordon would be I'd actually pick Ferguson in that fight. Despite Jared Gordon did very well against Bobby Green until the headbutt, doing very well, obviously getting a first round knockout in his most recent fight. You know, I have to give Pimblett a bit more credit, you know, but however, that was a bad performance. I think having your foot broken in 3 places would be extremely difficult to manage. But he's tough. Pimblett is tough, he's durable, he's very, very explosive. He throws combinations as well, and I feel like if you can sneak a combination through on Tony Ferguson with that power and explosivity at this point in his career, he's got a very good chance of knocking Tony Ferguson out, and that's what I'm going to say. I think Paddy Pimblett knocks out Tony Ferguson, and I think us as MMA fans, as I said, should want that. Oh God, I'm going to get so much hate for saying that. However, if Ferguson wins, it does nothing for the sport. If Pimblett wins, okay, he's back on track, his following goes up again, oh, everyone's back on the Pimblett hype train, it's a big fight. I want Pimblett to win. I'm going to say it, I want Paddy Pimblett to go out there and starch him. That hurts so much to say, that hurts more than anything on this planet to say. However, it's what the sport needs, it's business, it's what needs to happen, and it's a really good way for Pimblett to get back on track and showcase his skill set again with a guy of the caliber. Tony Ferguson's a massive name. It's generation versus generation. It's the tough, crazy mental person in war, Tony Ferguson, versus the young, cocky, arrogant guy, Paddy Pimblett. And I'm not a Paddy Pimblett meat rider at all. I've made 3-4 videos slating this man so much, slagging Paddy Pimblett off more than anything you could ever imagine. So guys, please don't think I'm just saying this because I am on the hype train. Like, I ripped him to pieces when he lost to Jared Gordon. I ripped him to pieces after that whole situation, how he handled it. But look, I think he's going to go out there and knock out Tony Ferguson, and I think it'll be really good for the sport in terms of eyeballs, notoriety, and that's what we need as fans. Obviously, it hurts my heart, but as fans, we should want MMA to grow, and regardless of that, I believe Tony Ferguson will be knocked out by Paddy Pimblett this weekend. I'm going to say first or second round knockout. I think it's going to be a shock, and I think it's going to be just a combination of explosivity. Late round one maybe. Late round one, you know, it's kind of tit for tat, a few leg kicks, a bit of in the clinch against the cage a little bit, and then left hook, right hand, wobbles Ferguson a little bit, hits maybe, Pimblett hits his hooks quite, he rounds his fist quite a lot, so he hits the top of the head, and he doesn't plant and hit the chin, he hits more like the temple, hits the temple, maybe just behind the ear. Ferguson's a bit like this, uppercut left hook against the cage, something like that, and very similar to his debut. But you have to remember, Pimblett's first 3 UFC finishes, Vargas, Levitt, and Bladen Venturini. You don't see people just coming into the UFC 3 finishes on the trot unless they have some sort of really good ability, and especially submitting Levitt. So Levitt's a submission guy, knocking out Venturini. Venturini is known for being a good Muay Thai artist, Muay Thai practitioner, and then Vargas, you know, being a well-rounded martial artist, getting the win against him after facing adversity. You know, Ian Gary didn't do that. He still gets the odd decision, you know. I just want to say that, I want to throw that out there. Paddy Pimblett's style is explosive and fast and he looks for a finish. One thing that John Kavanagh, McGregor's coach, always says is position before submission. Paddy Pimblett just goes for it. He just goes for it, flying triangles, this and this and that. He looks for the finish, and I think this year off has probably lit a fire under his belly, and he comes in really, really good shape regardless of how much he balloons up outside of camp. And I'm going to go Paddy Pimblett by knockout. Beats Tony Ferguson easy. Don't think he's going to submit Ferguson, and if he does, it'll be a choke and maybe a triangle or something. Wouldn't that be something? That would be a real passing of the guard. But anyway, thanks folks. hope you guys enjoy the fights. I'll be making a video straight after the fights are done, and thank you.